So this weekend is a big recruiting weekend. I know that there aren't a whole lot of details, but
Yeah, Mark, it looks like Oklahoma has between some of the 2023 and 2024 cycle, Oklahoma will have somewhere around 10 kids on campus this weekend to for an official visit. So, like you said, there's not a whole lot of detail. Some of these things get kind of hush hush until, but there's quite a few really good names here in the both the 23 and the 24 cycle. So we'll obviously keep our ears to the ground and see if we see anything in terms of a commitment or anything like that. But I think the team has been the coaching staff has been really good. Really hitting the ground running at and I think Oklahoma has more of is starting to get more of kind of a southeastern presence from a recruiting perspective. And obviously that makes sense with what's coming in the next step from an SEC perspective. But Oklahoma's really focused on that area more so. Obviously, they've got the California connection that they previously had, and they want to continue to have that pipeline as well. But it's been clear early on, Mark, that Brent Venables has made Oklahoma a priority, and then southeast part of the country a priority. Certainly, Oklahoma as Oklahoma moves into the SEC whenever that ends up being.
that is going to be someday when we find that news out, when that news drops, that the SEC and Oklahoma and Texas have gotten together and decided, okay, this is the time. Bam. 2023, 24, 25. I don't think it's going to drift off too far. I can't imagine they would go past, let's say, my guess is either 23 or 24. I can't imagine they're going to let it drift past 24 to 25.
Yeah, I don't think so either, Mark. However, I was thinking about this one. I think we were talking a little bit about kind of the playoff discussion last week with there being no expansion until 2025. I wonder if part of the thought process for both Oklahoma and Texas. Okay, we had an assumption that this playoff expansion would happen sooner rather than later. Now it's not until at least 2025, 2026. So does that make some of their decision making a little bit different? Say, hey, maybe we stay in the Big 12 a little bit longer. We have an easier path to the playoff right now with the way that the playoff is situated. And then once we're in the SEC 2025, 26, whenever it might be, you look at an expanded playoff and maybe it puts us in a better position there. I don't know. I mean, I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm still with you. I think probably I would be surprised if it's longer than 2023 or 2024, but this could be something that's in the back of their mind from a thought process perspective.
Yeah, it's a good point. Unless Texas gets its act together, they have no business thinking about a playoff or that determining any kind of decisions they make. But when it comes to Oklahoma, certainly they've been a playoff fixture for the most part. And if they dive into the SEC with still a 14 playoff, of course, that severely lessens the chances as opposed to remaining in the Big 12, being a team that has won the conference 3/4 of the time. And that typically leads to a playoff appearance and then riding that out as long as you possibly can before making that jump to hopefully coincide with the expansion of the playoff and increased opportunity in the SEC. What is an interesting possible move or decision to be made by the Big 12 is they're, of course, going to hang on to Oklahoma and Texas as long as they can from a financial standpoint, but it's got to kind of irk them that Oklahoma and Texas may drive their decision and kind of leave them just hanging on to their conference affiliation until they want to leave. They've already added 4 members. Is the Big 12 going to simply allow Oklahoma and Texas to dictate when they leave, which they have no control over, but which leads to the incoming 4 members? Or would the Big 12 just say, you know what? The heck with you. We're going to bring these 4 in. We're going to have a 16-team league because we want to get started with our 4 new members.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought process, I think, on both sides, Mark. When you if you're the if you're the Big 12, I think the initial shock is over, right? I mean, you've the that when that initial shock happened, you're probably like, okay, let's they don't want to be part of this league, so it's best if they leave, go ahead and leave now. Now we want to get our money. We want to get our clause for them, kind of getting out of the agreement early, but um I don't know. It's a weird kind of situation for both sides when you think. I mean, I'm sure they want, to the point that you made, they want to hang on to Oklahoma and Texas as long as they possibly can to to have that revenue stream continue to come through the conference. But at the same time, they probably want to move forward with what the Big 12 is going to look like in the future with with the 4 teams that they added. Now, when you look at Oklahoma and Texas, they probably feel like they hold all the bargaining chips in the world, outside of the fact that they have to pay this money. So do they feel like it's worth paying the millions of dollars that it's going to take to get out of the conference to know that year one they're going to start making tons more money in the SEC, or do they bide their time and they feel like, okay, we can hang on to this for a couple 2 or 3 more years, and we don't have to pay near as much, and then we're going to get tons of money from what it will be like being in the SEC. So I think it's very interesting. I could see, honestly, I could see it going could see it going both ways. I don't think the Big 12 has anything that they can do to push Oklahoma and Texas out the door early with kind of the way that grant of rights deal is set up. But yeah, it's weird because there was so much this summer there was so much. Um, I guess it was early fall. There was so much discussion around that for like 3 4 weeks, and then it kind of, I think then it kind of just stopped. So very very interesting to see when that talk will pick up, and what the eventual timeline will look like.
So, based on what you just cited, the Big 12 could not make the decision that, okay, you have decided, Oklahoma and Texas, to leave our conference. Now you are deciding to hang on for another season, another season, another season. The Big 12 could not say, we're deciding when you leave. You're not part of our conference anymore. You made that decision. Now we are determining the timing of that. So, bye.
Yeah, no, it's well, and it's such a and I think this is the reason why, Mark, why such a delay in the playoff expansion, right? Because no one knows, truthfully, when Oklahoma and Texas are actually going to make that jump. It could be, in 2023, or it could be 2025. So no one really knows what that's going to look like. So I think it's hard when you look at them, when you say, does the Big 12 get an automatic bid? Well, yeah, they do right now. Obviously, no if, ands, or buts about it. They probably should, get not necessarily an automatic bid, but the Big 12 is going to hold a lot more water than it would without Oklahoma and Texas. So from that perspective, you kind of can't blame the kind of the playoff committee for saying, no, we're not quite, or the conference commissioners along with that, we're not quite ready, to expand. But yeah, I think that the placement of college football in terms of what that looks like for the future is going to be interesting for the next few years, to see, is there any more dominoes that fall on top of this. I mean, I think there's been a lot already this year, um, and even at the lower level, lower level, I guess I should say, you know as far as that goes. But yeah, I think it's going to be so interesting to watch, to see what that time frame looks like. Like I said, I can see the advantages of Oklahoma and Texas looking to jump immediately. Jump when I say immediately, 2023, but I can also see them, thinking let's sit back and let's wait a couple of years and then we don't have any. There's no early out clause. There's no financial penalty, and then we start fresh in the SEC.
Yeah, if OU, let's say they jump in 2023, OU and Texas, and then there's not a playoff expansion until we know, unless things change drastically, they have announced it's not going to take place at least until 2026. Maybe it's further than that, that OU is really going to have to be on its game to get to the playoffs in the SEC. They got to win the conference, or you have to be a one-loss non-champion. That's pretty much how it's played out for the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much, we've talked a little bit about Oklahoma and I mean Texas to a bigger degree, but Oklahoma as well. Early on, I mean, there's going to be some stumbling blocks, absolutely. When you look at no matter how no matter how the conferences, the divisions, I should say, are aligned, if it's a pod system or whatever, Oklahoma's going to take a little bit of a lump early on. Texas may take a little bit bigger of a lump early on, just kind of understand, where they're at. It took Texas A&M a while. They've been, upper towards the top half of the SEC, the higher portion of the SEC over the last couple of years, but it took them a while. Missouri was a little bit fortunate, when they started they even made the SEC championship game a couple of years, and then they've fallen off a little bit over the last 3 or 4 years. But yeah, it's going to be there's going to be some growing pains without a doubt. And having Oklahoma or Texas for that matter, being in a position to your point, be a one loss second place team, or even a third place team, or winning that SEC is going to be a hard thing to achieve right off the bat.